Okay, welcome everyone. My name's Eloisa Ramos, and I am here with my daughter Sonia and my friends Connie and Teresa.
Hello.
And today we are continuing with our study of a text of A Course in Miracles, and we left off on chapter 8, The Journey Back, and we are working on section 4, The Gift of Freedom. Okay, I'll take the first paragraph. If God's will for you is complete peace and joy, unless you experience only this, you must be refusing to acknowledge His will. His will does not vacillate, being changeless forever. When you are not at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are in Him. Yet, He is all in all. His peace is complete, and you must be included in it. His laws govern you because they govern everything. You cannot exempt yourself from His laws, although you can disobey them. Yet if you do, and only if you do, you will feel lonely and helpless because you are denying yourself everything. Okay, so this paragraph reminds me of something that Ken Wapnick was talking about when he said that he was reading something about how our true nature is love. It's a loving will. We were created by a loving will, and that's our true nature. And so this is basically saying the same thing, that God's will is for our complete peace and joy. And therefore, if we're not experiencing that, we are denying our true nature. Okay. And that means that we are refusing to acknowledge His will. And therefore, we must believe that there can be some alien will apart from God's will. So, too, His will with a capital W does not vacillate, being changeless forever. So, we can't ever change God's will. It is, but we can think or believe otherwise. Okay. But that doesn't mean that it's changing God's will. Okay. It's just our own personal delusion. Okay. So when you are not at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are in Him. So see, that's a belief. So we can believe that we are separate from God, that we are not in God, but that doesn't make it true in reality, only in our own imagination, in our own thinking, in our own feeling, in our own sensing. Okay. So yet He is all in all. So there's no exception. His peace is complete, and you must be included in it. And that, what's really hard to believe, because we're so used to being in conflict all the time, is that our true nature is uh, peace, and um, and and basically inner peace is health. So our true nature is health. And so to not be healthy is actually believing that we can be separate from the will of God. And that's basically what sickness is. That's the belief in separation. So His laws govern you because they govern everything. So we cannot be excluded. We cannot break. We cannot uh, abandon the laws of God. Okay, because they govern everything. There's no exception there. But we can believe that we can. Okay, and that's, the belief in sin, the belief in the ego that we're a separate self, the belief that we're a body. So let's see. So you cannot exempt yourself from his laws, although you can disobey them. Yet if you do, and only if you do, you will feel lonely and helpless because you are denying yourself everything. Okay. So this is where we get into lack and scarcity. And so that's the feeling lonely piece and the feeling helpless piece. Because once we believe that those laws can be disobeyed, we believe then that we are separate from God. And therefore, we are no longer as God created us. And therefore, we are no longer, um, let's see, in our natural state, um, which is everything. Okay. All right. Number 2.
I am come as a light into a world that does deny itself everything. It does this simply by dissociating itself from everything. It is therefore an illusion of isolation, maintained by fear of the same loneliness that is its illusion. I said that I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. That is why I am the light of the world. If I am with you in the loneliness of the world, the loneliness is gone. You cannot maintain the illusion of loneliness if you are not alone. My purpose, then, is still to overcome the world. I do not attack it, but my light must dispel it because of what it is. Light does not attack darkness, but it does shine it away. If my light goes with you everywhere, you can shine it away with me. The light becomes ours, and you cannot abide in darkness any more than darkness can abide wherever you go. The remembrance of me is the remembrance of yourself and of him who sent me to you.
Okay. You want to say anything, Sonia, from there?
Um, no, I just think the key word is dissociating itself from everything. And sentence 2.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And dissociating is another word for what?
rejecting.
Separation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Yes, so it's separation and it's also rejection. Um, because to believe that we are separate is to judge that we can reject everything, that it's possible to reject everything, and therefore deny ourselves everything. Okay. Um, so it says, I am come as a light into a world that does deny its everything. So the I is, you can think of it as Jesus, Jesus Christ, or you can even think of it as the Holy Spirit, the voice for God. Uh, I think it's probably more like Jesus Christ um, because he said, I am the truth, the light, and the way. So his Christ mind, the Christ mind, is the true identity of what we are as a son of God. And so Christ knew that. He knew he was the son of God. He wasn't denying everything. So he was not dissociating himself from everything. Um, and therefore, he was one with God. So, number 3, it is therefore an illusion of isolation to believe that we can be separate from God, that we can actually, let's see, separate from our true nature. And that is maintained by the fear of the same loneliness that is its illusion. Um, so, in other words, it's a loop. We feel lonely, and therefore we say, I must be alone and separate from my source. Okay. And so, if I am separate from my source, then that's why I feel lonely. So it just loops around itself. Um, so I said that I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Okay. And remember here that the world, um, he's referring to the world that does deny itself everything, because it's a world that is made of a perception of separation. Um, so it's an illusory world. Okay, even though that's all we that's all we perceive, um, because that's being born into a world means that we perceive ourselves to be a separate body, and bodies perceive other bodies. So, um, and then we consider that reality, not illusion. So let's see. So that world is, you could almost say it's like a, mm, it's a, it's, uh, let's see. Yeah, it's like a delusion, when we, or like when we hallucinate, I remember having a fever one time and kind of hallucinating and kind of imagining seeing things that weren't there. So, um, so that's kind of what the world is, even though it seems to be so pressed, you know what I mean? So real, so solid. Um, it's just projected images. Um, okay, so anyway, let's see. I am with you. I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. So the end of the world would be that illusory world. So, so for the mind to be healed and to come to recognize itself as the Christ mind, the Son of God, does not imply the destruction, does not imply destruction and death of bodies. Okay. It's simply, it's the enlightenment of the mind who was believing that the darkness was real and is no longer um, believing that. Um, yeah. So in truth, we're not alone. We can't be alone because we cannot be separate from our source, which is God, which is creative power, which is loving will. So we cannot be separate from the will of God, because that's what will is. It's power, it's energy. You can call it energy, but it's creative. It's not energy the way that we think of it, like a battery stores energy or electricity. Um, it's life-giving. So let's see, sharing extension of that life-giving power. Let's see. So my purpose then is still to overcome the world. So we said that Jesus overcame the world because uh, he overcame illusions of believing he was separate as an ego, a body. Um, and and I do not attack, but my light must dispel it because of what it is. Um, yes, so darkness does not have an existence in and of itself. It's simply a shadow when the light is blocked. So if we deny the light, then there seems to be darkness because we're blocking the light. We're closing our eyes. And that's why the light never attacks. It only shines it away. Let's see. And you know what he's saying, that, okay, if my light goes with you everywhere, you shine it away with me. So the light becomes ours and you cannot abide in darkness. So it's a sharing of the light, and that's what we bring with us to share, which is the same thing as saying, you know, I choose love, I choose to forgive you. Because I recognize that we are oneself, and I'm really just forgiving myself. Why wouldn't I want to forgive myself? Um, so that's 13. The remembrance of me is the remembrance of yourself and him who sent me to you. So it's the recognition of the oneness of the will of God that created everything, one with itself, with God. Um, okay, any questions with that one? No? Okay, number 3.
Let's see. I just want to say, I just love that idea of how just we are the light, and yeah, by extending that, I mean, that's the whole purpose, sharing it with everybody, that
Mm-hmm.
light that we always have. I just love how that was worded there.
Mm-hmm.
If my light goes with you everywhere, you shine it away with me. Wait a minute. If my light goes with you everywhere, you shine, yeah, you shine the darkness away, the
Yeah.
shadow,
Mm-hmm.
shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just anyway, I just love that image of just always having a light within.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful. Yeah.
And to share it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You were in darkness until God's will was done completely by any part of the sonship. When this was done, it was perfectly accomplished by all. How else could it be perfectly accomplished? My mission was simply to unite the will of the sonship with the will of the Father by being aware of the Father's will myself. This is the awareness I came to give you. And your problem in accepting it is the problem of this world. Dispelling it is salvation, and in this sense, I am the salvation of the world. The world must therefore despise and reject me, because the world is the belief that love is impossible. If you will accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world and accepting God. My will is His, and your decision to hear me is the decision to hear His voice and abide in His will. As God sent me to you, so will I send you to others, and I will go to them with you, so we can teach them peace and union.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so you were in darkness until God's will was done completely by any part of the sonship. So the light has come, the darkness has been dispelled because Jesus Christ accomplished that completely. See, when this was done, that's a past tense. So, and also you were in darkness, that's a past tense. So, um, so the the belief in separation is a past belief, it's a past tense belief, because it says that number 2, when this was done, it was perfectly accomplished by all. Okay, and it was perfectly accomplished by all because there's no separation between what God creates. It's all one sun. So once one part accomplishes, it's been accomplished. It's there in the mind. And so number 4, this is Jesus speaking. My mission was simply to unite the will of the sonship with the will of the Father by being aware of the Father's will myself. Okay, so um, so the Father's so by being aware of his Father's will as his own will, as the will of the sonship, there was no separation there. He accomplished the release of the only problem that there is, which is the problem of separation. So that's the healing of the mind. So this is the awareness I came to give you. So that awareness is the healing of our mind. So it's a present memory, okay? Because it's past. Okay, it's already been accomplished, but we have forgotten it. But now in the present, we can remember it. So let's see. Okay, and your problem in accepting it is the problem of the world. So that's the only problem. The problem is that we are denying that this is already over and done with. That the belief in separation came and was given an answer instantly, and it was gone. So now we just have to recognize that, to remember that. Because it's like living in denial. So you can think of the world as living a lie, like being a denial. That's why, the Course says that we're not in our right mind. So we're insane. We're living in denial that there's still separation, that I can still be separate from God. And it's not true. And when that tiny mad idea came up, it was given the answer immediately, and it was done, over. So let's see. So the dispelling it is salvation. So dispelling the illusion that that was not given an answer is salvation. And in this sense, I am the salvation of the world. Because once we accept the truth, okay, the tiny mad idea showed up, was given an answer, it was over. That's basically the end of time. That's the end of the world. That's the end of denial. And the mind no longer believes in separation, no longer believes in the ego. So that's why it says the world must therefore despise and reject me, because the world is the belief that love is impossible. Um, so, um, so in the world, we find unconditional love, which is the will of God, which is what our true nature is. We find that to be impossible. We find it impossible to believe. Because it's that unbelievable belief, okay? Because we're so used to what is normal, and therefore what we consider to be natural, to not be love, to be separation. We choose separation, we choose unforgiveness, we choose the grievance, and those are not our true nature. but in the world, that's what seems to be the majority rule. Okay. Um, so let's see. So so therefore, to the world that holds on to that idea, those ideas, what the Course is saying here is not something that is going to be acceptable, because it's challenging all of our beliefs that we've grown up with. And that's what makes it hard to really stick with the Course. Not because the ideas are hard, but because we have all this resistance, because we're protecting our own made up beliefs. Um, and we don't want to let them go. So, however, to hold on to those beliefs is to believe that we are isolated and lonely. So there's a lot of suffering that goes with that. So number eight, if you will accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world and accepting God. So we would be denying isolation. We would be denying separation. We would be denying that it's possible to be lonely. So my will is his, and your decision to hear me is the decision to hear his voice, Holy Spirit, and abide in his will. Because we would be releasing the belief that there can be a separate will. And as God sent me to you, so I will send you to others, and I will go to them with you. Because teaching peace and union is teaching love, which is what we are in truth. But we have learned otherwise. So now we have to unlearn what we taught ourselves to remember love. Okay, number 4. Is it my turn?
No, it's my turn.
Your turn. Okay.
Yeah. Do you think the world needs peace as much as you do? Do you not want to give it to the world as much as you want to receive it? For unless you do, you will not receive it. If you want to have it of me, you must give it. Healing does not come from anyone else. You must accept guidance from within. The guidance must be what you want, or it will be meaningless to you. That is why healing is a collaborative venture. I can tell you what to do, but you must collaborate by believing that I know what you should do. Only then will your mind choose to follow me. Without this choice, you could not be healed because you would have decided against healing. And this rejection of my decision for you makes healing impossible. I mean, he's basically directing us on how to live.
Mm-hmm.
Healing must not come from anyone else. You must accept guidance from within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And let's see. 7, the guide must be what you want, or it will be meaningless to you. Um, so there's the there's that little turning point there where we recognize that this guidance is let's see, is not something that the world can give us. Okay, so this is where we turn away from seeking for ourselves solutions in the world, and where we go inward to that guidance, because there's some recognition that The answer is within, that the truth is within. And there's also, let's see, and there's also, it's also saying that there needs to be trust. Let's see. See, I can tell you what to do, but you must collaborate by believing that I know what you should do. That's trust, okay? Okay, if I don't trust that guidance within, I'm not going to follow it. Um, and um, and if I don't follow it, then I'm not going to receive the healing that I'm being offered. So let's see. Also, if I only want it for myself, which is what the first lines were referring to, and it's not something that I also want to see in the world, okay, I'm not going to receive it either, because giving is receiving. Um, and I think that's sort of what started me looking for another way here, because I was looking at my children and I was seeing, oh my goodness, I want to see them healthy. Okay. I want that for them, and I want that for everyone. Um, and and that's the and that's opening the mind to receiving the healing so that I can give it. And therefore so that it will be reflected back to me in the world. Um, yes. Yes, so without this choice, which is believing that I know what you should do, you could not be healed because you would have decided against healing. So that's where we oppose our highest good a lot of the times, because we're following the ego. And that's what makes healing impossible. So you could call that the fear of healing. Because we don't trust that guidance. So, okay. Any questions? No. Number 5. Okay, it's my turn now then. Healing reflects our joint will. This is obvious when you consider what healing is for. Healing is the way in which the separation is overcome. Okay, so this is undoing the dissociation that we were talking about in the earlier paragraph. So that we need to trust that within us is the answer, which is the voice for God, is the Holy Spirit, and is the link to the truth, that there is no separation, that we are one son of God. So separation, number 4, is overcome by union. It cannot be overcome by separating. The decision to unite must be unequivocal, or the mind itself is divided and not whole. Your mind is the means by which you determine your own condition, because mind is the mechanism of decision. Okay, so the mechanism of decision means that if the mind is split, if there is not union in our own mind, if our own mind is split into parts, we cannot make a decision that is unequivocal. Because that decision will not be whole. There will be a part that's left out of it. So it is the power number 8, it is the power by which you separate or join and experience pain or joy accordingly. Yes, so that's ultimately the decision for love, for forgiveness, which is to join or to separate, and therefore the pain and the joy follow accordingly. Number 9, my decision cannot overcome yours. Okay, so Jesus Christ made the decision, but we have freedom. I think that's why this is called the gift of freedom. So we, in our freedom, must also make that same decision. So my decision cannot overcome yours because yours is as powerful as mine. If it were not so, the sons of God would be unequal. All things are possible through our joint decision, but mine alone cannot help you because it's one mind. So, um, so let's see. So it's kind of like a paradox there. It's our mind, but we have freedom. We have that freedom to believe we are separate and not one mind, and therefore to choose to not follow the will of God. That's the belief in separation. So your will is as free as mine, and God Himself would not go against it. I cannot will what God does not will. I can offer my strength to make yours invincible, but I cannot oppose your decision without competing with it and thereby violating God's will for you. Okay, so okay, so Christ's mind, Jesus Christ, excuse me. Okay, recognize that his true will was one with God. And that's why it says in 13, I cannot will what God does not will. Okay, that's the truth. Nobody can, okay, but we can believe or think we can. And therefore, the only thing that our right mind, our Christ mind, can offer is that strength. But it cannot oppose our decision to believe things that are not true. So, because God's will is for us to be free, to believe whatever we want, okay? Because that's part of what love is. Love is freedom. So, um, yeah. So it's all about freedom because there's no force here. The Holy Spirit in our mind is not going to try to do what the ego thought system does, which is, use fear, use guilt, use, let's see, protection to try to motivate us, to force us to, oh, I have to do this. You're obligated to do this. You should do this or you're a bad person. Okay. So all of those thoughts are ego thoughts and there's always some kind of coercion in there. And that's a good way to recognize which thoughts are ego thoughts. Because there's always that sense of there's going to be a resistance because the mind is split. There's always this separation there. So not all the parts are on board. Okay, number 6. Okay.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Nothing God created can oppose your decision, as nothing God created can oppose his will. God gave your will its power, which I can only acknowledge in honor of his. If you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind. I can teach you, but only you can choose to listen to my teaching. How else can it be if God's kingdom is freedom? Freedom cannot be learned by tyranny of any kind, and the perfect equality of all God's sons cannot be recognized through the dominion of one mind over another. God's sons are equal in will, all being the will of their Father. This is the only lesson I came to teach.
Mhm. You want to say anything, Sonia?
I just like line 5 and 4. I can teach you, but only if you choose to listen to my teachings. I mean, what I'm getting from this is that I'm basically valuing my ego goals, which is why I choose not to listen to his teachings. So that's the only time as when I want something different. But by wanting something different, I'm not wanting who I am in truth. So I'm just rejecting myself.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting from this.
Mhm.
But then, it doesn't even matter because he's just gonna wait. He's like, okay, you can choose that. Like, that's fine. But in the end, I can't really. I'm just buying myself time and suffering. That's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what a trade-off, right? Yeah, I'll just suffer and yeah,
And sooner or later, you're going to change your mind. So,
yeah.
yeah. So it's like, look, been there, done that. Okay. Um, you can want to be different, but sooner or later, you're going to change your mind. Okay.
Mm.
And the time is up to you. The mind decides when it's time. So for me, I think this was a very, very good lesson because we tend to want to force the truth on others. You can't force the truth on others, okay? They're going to learn it when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just like our own mind, you know, we learned it when we were ready. And the how long it's going to take us to learn it, that's up to us too. So it's all a self-paced study. Um, and let's see. And that's what freedom is. So the suffering is completely our choice because we want to hang in there just to keep believing that we are different from God, that we are not as we were created. Um, to hold on to the belief in ego and being separate from our source and in self-creating ourselves. Um, so, um, yeah, number 7, freedom cannot be learned by tyranny of any kind. And the perfect equality of all of God's sons cannot be recognized through the dominion of one mind over another. So the idea of control comes in here, okay? And the minute that we want to control or that we think we're being controlled, we're going to perceive inequality. We're gonna perceive that the power that we have is not the same, that some people have more power than others, which is not true because God created all of his children with the same power. That's what it says right here, 8. God's sons are equal in will, all being the will of their Father. Okay, this is the only lesson I came to teach. Okay, so perfect equality means that there's no point in judging anybody. There's no point in saying, oh, poor sweet baby, or oh, that was unfair, or oh, you know, that was abusive, and that was victimizing, and that was okay, because there's perfect equality. And that's really, really hard to try to grasp, because we have power associated with size, either size of the body or the hierarchy of positions in the world. So we're always perceiving inequality, but in truth, the mind, where that is the cause of everything that we perceive, is given the same will by God, the same power by God. And so each of us is responsible for everything that we experience. Um, and it may seem like, how could that be? I don't, you're telling me that I wanted to experience, being abused, or having experiences of hunger, or poverty, or those kind of things. And that's probably one of the hardest things to really recognize, okay, that those things don't happen to us, that the mind is the only causal level, and that the interpretation that we give to those experiences is based on judgment, and it's the judgment that seems to make inequality true, and it's not true. Okay, because we make up standards, and in order to judge, we have to say, well, below this level of income, that's poverty. Above this level of income, it's your middle income. So we're always having to make standards from which to judge. Otherwise, there would be no way to judge. It's like, oh, okay, well, oh, okay, so I make $5 under the middle income level. So that's going to define me as a poor person now, or that's going to define you, as above middle income, as rich. Okay. And so all those ideas are a way to perceive inequality and separation. Okay. And they're all made up. They're all made up, because obviously the income, $12,000 a year in the US is poverty level. Okay. But $12,000 of income in the Philippines, my gosh, that's wealth. Okay. So it's all relative. All of the perceptions of, what is equal, what is unequal, are based on standards, and the standards are different depending on where you go in the world. Okay, any questions? Okay, number 7.
If your will were not mine, it would not be our Father's. This would mean you have imprisoned yours and have not let it be free. Of yourself you can do nothing, because of yourself you are nothing. I am nothing without the Father, and you are nothing without me, because by denying the Father, you deny yourself. I will always remember you. And in my remembrance of you lies your remembrance of yourself. In our remembrance of each other lies our remembrance of God. And in this remembrance lies your freedom, because your freedom is in Him. Join then with me in praise of Him and you whom He created. This is our gift of gratitude to Him, which He will share with all His creations, to whom He gives equally whatever is acceptable to Him. Because it is acceptable to Him, it is the gift of freedom, which is His will for all His sons. By offering freedom, you will be free.
Mhm. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so if your will were not mine, it would not be our Father's. Okay, so we share one will with our brothers because it is the will of our Father. So all will comes from God. It's creative power, um and I can't take ownership of that. I mean, the ego, of course, tries to take ownership of that and believes that it can self-create itself. Okay. Uh, but this is reminding us that the will of God, which is loving creative power, is what we are. And we are all equal in that because we were all created out of the same loving creative will. Um, And that's why we cannot actually have separate wills. Um, and that's what it's saying, line 1. If your will were not mine, it would not be our Father's. So this would mean that you have imprisoned yours and have not let it be free. So the will of God is free will, and it's a loving will. It's not a will that tries to dominate, that tries to control, that tries to have it my way. Okay, that's all ego. And that is the belief that um, I can have a separate will that's just mine or separate from yours. And then therefore I can oppose yours, and therefore I can oppose God's will. And to believe that is actually to limit my will because it is no longer coming from the source of all power, which is God. So by making it into an individual will, I have actually limited it and imprisoned it. Um, and so, and the more I do that, the more disempowered I feel. Because I feel that if you're bigger, you can dominate me. And now I am forced to do your will. Okay. And so number 3 says, of yourself, you can do nothing because of yourself, you are nothing. Okay. Okay. So once we limit our will to that extent, we come to see ourselves as worthless, as nothing. So if I think that, my parents decide everything for me, then I have no freedom. I have no decision-making power. I don't really have a life. My life is their life. They rule it, they govern it, they control it. So I begin to see myself as nothing, just this leaf in the wind here that gets blown by, this way and that way. So 4, I am nothing without the Father, and you are nothing without me. Okay. So the Christ mind is you are nothing without me. So if I don't recognize that I am one Christ mind, I am disconnecting myself from that power. I'm blocking myself. I'm denying that power. Um, Because by denying the Father, you deny yourself. Yes. And we deny that power that's in our mind. I will always remember you. And in my remembrance of you, as part of the sonship, okay, lies your remembrance of yourself. So that's how we come to remember our true self as one creation, one Son of God, one Christ mind. That is the cause of our experiences, because that is the source of of all power. Um, it's connected to God, the power of creation. So in our remembrance of each other lies our remembrance of God, because we remember we are one Son, and therefore we have one Father. And in this remembrance lies your freedom, because your freedom is in Him, in God's will. So our true freedom is to remember that our true will is God's will, because that's the truth. And so join then with me in praise of Him and you whom He created. This is our gift of gratitude to Him, which He will share with all His creations. So it's a giving and receiving there also. So it's saying, let's praise God, because we are God's creations, and we are as He created us, and we are blessed because of that. And our gift is gratitude to Him. And that gratitude comes back as blessings to His creations. So to whom He gives equally whatever is acceptable to Him. So there's no favoritism. Everyone is given equally. And what's acceptable to God is unconditionally loving. So it's all, so He can only bless. He can only give us blessings, gifts, because it is acceptable to Him. It is the gift of freedom. So that's what He gives us. It's a gift of freedom, which is His will for all His sons. So it's power, love, freedom, power. It's the same thing. And in the world, that's upside down, because we think that limiting freedom is power, is control, is domination. It is exerting my will over your will, which is separation of will. So it's upside down. And that's why it's imprisoning. And number 11, by offering freedom, you will be free. Giving is receiving. Okay, number 8.
Freedom is the only gift you can offer to God's sons, being an acknowledgement of what they are and what He is. Freedom is creation because it is love. Whom you seek to imprison, you do not love. Therefore, when you seek to imprison anyone, including yourself, you do not love him and you cannot identify with him. When you imprison yourself, you are losing sight of your true identification with me and with the Father. Your identification is with the Father and with the Son. It cannot be with one and not the other. If you are part of one, you must be part of the other because they are one. The Holy Trinity is holy because it is one. If you exclude yourself from this union, you are perceiving the Holy Trinity as separated. You must be included in it because it is everything. Unless you take your place in it and fulfill your function as part of it, the Holy Trinity is as bereft as you are. No part of it can be imprisoned if its truth is to be known.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you kind of already said that when you were talking about the last paragraph, but as I see it, this is about imprisonment is the opposite of love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we can't do that because when we are one, we're one. It's interesting he talks about the Holy Trinity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So number 3, whom you seek to imprison, you do not love. So, and that includes ourselves. So let's see. So basically, we want to offer freedom because we recognize that our will is the same. And a lot of times, as a parent, the impulse would be to try to limit or control the behavior of my kids and what they're going to do. Okay, because I think that I know what's best for them. Okay, or because I think they're making a mistake and they're going to regret it later. Okay, and that's a really tricky one because we don't know. We don't know that. So we have to trust that everyone is here and they're here because they're they're here to heal their mind just like everyone else. And so the lessons that are going to show up are not lessons that are going to um, that are a threat, that are dangerous. They're going to be opportunities for them to learn what they need to learn uh, to heal their mind. So there's a certain amount of trust that that we there's a certain amount of trust in handing over our life, because we call it our life. Well, it's not our life because we did not create ourselves, okay? But we want to control our life, and then because we're afraid, okay? So there's fear under there. So the trust is really important in being able to let go of that fear and not try to micromanage and control other people around us and the situations around us, because all of that is really, there's really no point to it. Okay. One, we're either trying to control what happens in the future, and we don't know. There's no future. Okay. Or two, we're trying to prevent what happened in the past from happening again. Okay. And because we judged it bad. So so that too is missing the point. The point is that any error that we make is also the opportunity that the Holy Spirit can use to heal the mind so that we don't have to keep making the same error. And so the freedom to allow ourselves and everyone to experience what they're going to experience without trying to control it and everything is going to be what is what is trusting that the will of God is in our highest good. And it's going to release the fear of the future or the fear of repeating the errors of the past. So let's see.
Question.
Yeah.
So also it would seem to me, okay, being the parent, that it's really about their own fear of, trying to keep things safe. because the parent doesn't want to feel
Guilty.
the pain and the agitation. Well, that too, but just in general, does not want, it's really more about the parent in a lot of ways, not so much about worrying about the kid. I mean, there's some of that for sure, but it seems like it would be more about, what's going on with the parent
What do you mean?
in
Like,
order to be so controlling or dominating, or yeah, just the thought. I'm thinking in, yeah, because I came from such a controlling parent, yeah, that it was really about her own fears and projections that she, was putting on her kids. Anyway, I was
okay,
just,
but are you saying that the parent is separate from the kid?
um, well, not, no. I mean, yes and no. I mean, in order to just see how this process occurs, though, and how it can be undone, um,
Yes. Well,
I
the
think
only
it's
the only
important to look at
way,
that.
yeah, but here's the thing about the healing part of it. The mind is healed when it recognizes its true equality.
Of
So as
course.
a child,
Oh, please.
yes,
Go ahead.
so as a child, okay, at some point, and it's may not be when we're a child, but when we are an adult, we have to come to recognize that there was never any inequality just because of the difference of the position and the size of the body. Because what it says here is that God creates equally, and that his will is the same for everyone, irregardless of whether they're a parent or a child. So there's no exception, there's no separation in the will of God. So a child's mind is just as powerful as an adult parent's mind. Okay. And so in order to heal whatever showed up during that childhood, the adult has to accept the responsibility for that power of their mind to um, to make those experiences what they were for them, because the meaning that those experiences have is the meaning that the mind has given them. It's not that there's an inherent meaning in something. Let me see if I can give an example. Let's see. Oh, my son, we were talking about video games, and he was saying, well, I play video games because they're fun. And then he finally realized that, wait a minute, are you saying that the fun is not actually in the video games? I go, that's right, because he was saying, I don't understand why these video games are fun, but these other ones are not fun. And I'm telling him, well, yes, well, you're giving them the meaning. So it's not that video games are inherently fun and can offer you fun. Okay, the meaning is not inherently in the object that we interact with. Okay, it's our own interpretation that's making these video games fun and these video games not fun. And that's what you look at in order to heal that separation, because video games are video games, okay? But you're making them different, you're separating them. And that's the mind that's doing that, okay? So that's why that separation can be undone, because it's in our mind. And that's how the mind makes one thing fun and special and another thing not fun and special, but they're the same. They're both video games. So the same thing with parents, we can compare our parents and we can say, oh, I wish I had my friend's parents. They're really cool and they let my friend do this, this, and this, and my parents don't let me do that. Okay. So what I'm saying now, I'm going to judge them. I'm going to say, man, I got crappy parents. That's not fair. How come I got such crappy parents? Well, parents are parents, okay? So the interpretation that we're giving it's all coming from our mind. And in order to release and heal the mind and come to a place of peace and forgiveness, we have to let go of of that separation, of those differences, and of those comparisons, because given everything that the person grew up with, okay, they were actually doing the best they could. They could not have done it any better. Now, that may not be good enough for us. Okay, we can judge it that way. Nevertheless, it could not have been different. Okay, and to believe that the past could have been different is to not accept that we are judging it unacceptable and that it is our own judgment that's making us unhappy. And so we work with our own mind to release whatever perception of separation is there. Because obviously the past is over and done with. We can't change anything in the past. That's done. How is the mind going to heal? If we're always trying to go back to the past and want, it's by holding on to the judgment that things were bad, we're not going to be able to heal that unless we can let go of the judgment. Does that make sense, Connie?
Yeah, I don't, you just kind of went way. All I was saying was, I understand all that we're here to heal our minds.
Yes.
And it is my experience that in order to do that, before you get to all the understanding and forgiveness, that you have to look at it and see, it's complicated. You can't just say, oh, that never happened. It never happened.
Well, no, you don't say it. You don't say it
did.
never. You don't say it never happened. You say, okay, what happened is an interpretation of my mind. It's not inherently a fact. Just
I
like in
know,
an
I'm sorry, you're not understanding the point I was trying to make. So I think it's okay. I understand everything you're saying, and I'm going to just let it be.
Okay.
Okay, I understand everything you're saying. I was bringing up, I think, an entirely different, well, I don't even want to say that, just the experience of it all and how you get to the place of seeing truth and reality and forgiveness. Yeah.
Yes. So we work with our, yeah.
It's okay. I'm going to let it go.
Yes. So the freedom, okay, which is the only gift that God can offer our sons, is the freedom to believe anything we want. Okay. And that freedom means that we can interpret anything that happens to us that is an experience any way we want. Okay. And because of that, it means that our experiences are subjective and personal. And because they are subjective and personal, they're made up. They're not truth. They're not absolute truth. Okay. And because of that, they can be let go because they're not universal. They're personal. And anything that we make that is personal is going to be made alone, not with the will of God. So it's going to be a miscreation. And that's what needs healing. It's the miscreations that we have made that keep us from recognizing that everyone's true essential nature is loving. Everyone without exception, Putin, my parents, your parents, Mother Teresa, everyone is created with the same loving will. That is the power of our decision-making mind. So let's see. So 6, your identification is with the Father and with the Son, because there is no separation. So even though there is a Holy Trinity, and it comes up here, so 7, it cannot be with one or and not the other. So sometimes what we do is we join, like a religion, and we can really identify with God and really feel like we are one with God. But then we have problems with our brothers, and we will exclude our brothers. We will say, no, unless you believe what I believe, you are not going to be included in the kingdom of heaven, or you are going to be evil, or you are going to be a sinner. And so what it's saying here is that, see how the and is italicized in number 6? Your identification is with the Father and with the Son. It cannot be with one and not the other. So, so, um, so the light that is in my mind is the recognition that I am one with a Father. But if I don't share that light with my brothers, okay, I cannot be one with my Father. That's all it's saying here. 8, if you are part of one, you must be part of the other because they are one. So if I reject my brother, I am rejecting my Father because we are one. If I reject myself, I'm rejecting God and I am rejecting my brother. Okay, because it's all one. 9, the Holy Trinity is holy because it is one. So, uh, Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. There's the Creator, the created, and there's the love that unites them. It's all one. It's all one will. If you exclude yourself from this union, and we often do, we can be very forgiving of others and be very hard on ourselves and not forgive ourselves. Or we can be very forgiving of others and ourselves, but we can blame God and hold God, to be responsible for the bad things that happen in the world. So if you exclude yourself from this union, you are perceiving the Holy Trinity as separate. You must be included in it because it is everything. Unless you take your place in it and fulfill your function as a part of it, Holy Trinity is as bereft as you are. So oneness is an all or nothing deal. 13, no part of it can be imprisoned if its truth is to be known. So freedom is an all or nothing. Either we are free and recognize that the will of God is the same for everyone, or we don't, and we exclude a part, and therefore we believe we are no longer free. Okay. Okay, so, any questions before we stop? Yeah, no?
No.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for joining today, and we're going to continue next time with the undivided will of the sonship. It almost sounds like it's a continuation of this one. So until next time, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay.